لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. Bismillah. Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamidah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Just a quick reminder about the food parcel project. Each parcel costs £20 for a family. Brothers are requested to donate your Zakat, Sadaqah and Lillah towards this project. And inshallah, after the remaining salah, after the dua, Mufti Adam Sahab's talk will take place. Brothers are requested to participate and benefit from it. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى ال سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم انت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك ربنا وتعالى يا ذا الجلال والاكرام. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين برحمتك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. بصدر الشريف اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Alhamdulillah, this is our 12th lesson, and we're going through the book of Imam Ibn al-Qayyim Jawziyah rahimahullah, Al-Jawab al-Kafi liman sa'ala 'an ad-dawa' al-shafi, the sufficient response for the one who asked about a complete cure. And the other name of this book is Ad-Da'u wad-Dawa, the sickness and the cure. And up until now, we've been through many different lessons, and Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah is teaching us the importance of understanding and learning the harmful effects of sins. And then we broke it down into different types of sins: al-ma'asi and dhunub, malakiyya, shaytaniyya, sabu'iyya, and bahimiyya. We spoke about the angelic sins, and the satanic sins, and the predatory sins, and the animalistic sins. And then we broke them down into different categories. Then he said, okay, now I'm going to get into specific sins. And we spoke about the greatest sin that there can be on planet Earth. And what is that? Shirk. And he said that the purpose of this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala established the world, خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسَ بِالْقِسْطِ, so that people established al-qist, justice, al-adl. And al-adl, the ulama say, the highest level of adl, justice in this world, is tawheed. And the highest, what is the opposite of adl? Well, shirk, but what's the opposite of adl? Adl means justice. Dhulm, okay, which means injustice. So the highest level of adl and justice is tawheed. So the highest level of dhulm in this world is shirk. This is why Quran says, Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. That shirk is the greatest oppression. We're seeing oppression all over the world. The greatest oppression is shirk, may Allah protect us. Then he broke it down further. He said there is one type of shirk, okay, which is known as shirk al-khafi, the minor shirk. And the Prophet ﷺ described it like, in my ummah, the minor shirk will be like the footsteps of an ant. We say dabibun namla, footsteps of an ant. Can you see the footsteps of an ant? Can you hear the footsteps of an ant? He says this is how subtle minor shirk is. In Arabic we call it riya. In English we call it ostentation. In street language we call it showing off. Okay, when you do a good deed to show off. Now, those of you who are here in Fajr, okay, we had a lengthy discussion on this topic. And we, more than Ibn al-Qayyim, we took a lot of lessons from Imam Ghazali rahimahullah in regards to this topic. Why do people show off? Okay, why? What's the purpose? Why do people want to show off? How do people show off? What do they use? What do people want to achieve? Okay, and in which ways is it done? How do we stop doing this? How do we, and it's something that doesn't go away straight away. It's from when we are born, when we are young, it's there, the desire. Little children, they've done a colouring, a painting. Look, Mom, look, Dad, look what I've done. Look at me, look how I'm wearing, look how high I can jump. This is there, when we were children, we all had it. And as you grow, okay, a child, now, when somebody's going to college, university, they don't show their parents their work. Even when they ask for it, they don't show it. You don't need to see it. I'll show it to who I need to. I'll show it to my tutor. I'll show it to, okay, my form teacher. I'll show it to my lecturer, my professor, whoever I need it to. I don't need to show it to you. Okay, because they understand now, because they've gone through the sin, the age of Tamiz. Tamiz is differentiating between right and wrong. Similarly, in the deen, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah is saying there has to be a time when we spiritually mature. If somebody is a revert and they've just accepted Islam, they need a bit of encouragement. MashaAllah, you prayed Fajr today, okay? But we want this now. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years we've been praying, and we still want someone to say to us, MashaAllah, really good, you made it to the masjid. He's saying, no, that should go now. That is for people who are new. Maybe someone who's a new Muslim, or a young child has kept his first fast. Wow, mashallah. We want people to say it now. We've been doing Ramadan after Ramadan, and we want people to praise us. And we make a big deal out of it. Oh, today was hard, man. Really hard. I really struggled. What are you trying to say? You want to say, oh, mashallah, you did it though, didn't you? You saw it through, mashallah. Okay, so we're trying to seek the validation from people, even now at this age. Okay, so if someone's a revert, someone's a child, someone's been away from Islam, just really off the track, and they've just come onto the track. People like that need validation, they need encouragement. But those of us who have been on the deen, alhamdulillah, we shouldn't be seeking manzilatan fi qulubin nas. He says, talabul manzila fi qulubin nas. It's like I want a position in everyone's heart. So Imam Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah and Imam Ghazali, they teach us, it's not possible to be in every single person's heart. That's not possible. You're trying to achieve something that's impossible. You can't achieve a position in every person's heart. And number one. Number two, he said, you can't please everybody. It's not possible. The story of the man and the boy and the donkey, we all know, you can't please everybody. And third, he said, one of the reasons why people do show off is you want something that someone's got. Whether it's position, whether it's money, whether it's authority, whether it's an item, an object. And he said, look, people don't control anything. Control belongs to Allah. Control belongs to Allah. So this is what we spoke about in the morning. Anybody that missed out on that, you can, the recordings are there on YouTube, on the Masjid's YouTube channel. You can refer to that. It will be lesson number 11. We're going to move on now. So we're going to move on to something totally different now. So we're going to move on to different sins. So we spoke about Riyah, we spoke about Shirk. We're moving on to the next one. Now before I speak about the next one, I'm just going to share with you something which we call Maqasid al-Sharia. I don't think we've ever spoken about this before in this, well, I haven't anyway. Maybe others have. So Maqasid al-Sharia, the objectives of the Sharia. Does anybody know there are 5 Maqasid al-Sharia? Does anybody know what these are? It'll be very interesting to know, if we know. Anybody know? There are 5 Maqasid al-Sharia. Anybody? Basically, they are do you know the whole of Islam, the whole of Sharia? It's like, basically, there's 5 things that are there to protect the whole of Islam. Like, preserving the whole of Islam and the Sharia is to protect these 5 things. That's why this whole religion that we have is for the preservation of these 5 things. Anybody? You've never heard of this before? Okay, not a problem. Okay, so first of all, there's 5. Remember them from today onwards, inshallah. Number 1 is Hifzun Nafs, the preservation of life. The whole of Islam and the whole of our Sharia, okay, one of the fundamental purpose, okay, and maqasid objective of this Sharia is number 1, preservation of life, number 1. Number 2, Now this one, there's two opinions. Preservation of honor, or some say preservation of intellect. Okay, so number one, hifzun nafs, preservation of life. Like whatever, that preservation of life will always be like a priority in our deen. So our deen is based on this. Okay, when the scholars looked at the whole of the deen, they kind of came up with this and said, look, there are 5 maqasid objectives of our deen of Islam, and it seems everything falls into place. That this deen is there to preserve 5 fundamental things. Number 1, hifzun nafs, preservation of life. Number 2, preservation of aql, intellect, or some say honor, dignity. Number 3, hifdul arad, meaning preservation of property, wealth. Preservation of Islam hasn't come to destroy or deplete your wealth. One of the fundamental reasons of Islam, the objectives of sharia, is the preservation of people's wealth and property. Number 4, preservation of deen, hifzul deen, preservation of the faith and the deen. And number 5, hifdun nasl or al-al, meaning preservation of family life or lineage. So these are the maqasid of sharia. So it's important to know. So before Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah first speaks about shirk, then secondly he speaks about qatl. Now I've not mentioned any of that, I've skipped those pages. Couple of reasons. One is we don't have that much time, we've got so much to go through. And I know as we go towards Qiyamah, the one hadith mentions, as we get closer to Qiyamah, 2 things will increase. Police, which we are seeing, okay, police presence everywhere, and killing. So much so that the murderer will not know why he is killing, and the one being murdered will not know why he has been killed. So this is something that's becoming very common. And he speaks about murder, and he speaks about how severe of a sin it is. And the greatest murder would be of those people that are your greatest well-wishers. Who are they? Sorry? More than ulama, more than parents, prophets. Okay, so to kill a prophet would be the greatest kind of murder. And then you go in category like this. But every murder is bad. And the Quran says, whoever kills one person, it's like he's killed the whole of mankind. And whoever saved the life of one person is as if they've saved the life of the whole of mankind. I just said I'm not going to go into talking about this one, and I've just started already. So let me stop here, because we've got another one to talk about. So anyway, he speaks about that one. And the reason I've mentioned this, even briefly, is I want you to tell me now, from the 5 maqasid of sharia, which one does it violate? Preservation of life, okay? It might kind of go into the preservation of others as well, but mainly preservation of life. We're going to speak about the next sin now. And the reason why I mentioned the maqasid of sharia, this particular sin is so detrimental, it's so dangerous, and the evil effects and the consequences are so great that it kind of violates all 5 of the maqasid of sharia. It just destroys all of them. And we're going to go into understanding why. وَلَمَّا كَانَتْ مَفْسَدَةُ الزِّنَا مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْمَفَاسِدِ. He says, when you realize, we're going to speak about zina in particular. He says, when you realize the corruptive nature of zina, you will realize, when you understand that at the moment we don't know, we know the harms, but we don't know how bad is it. When it comes to these 5 maqasid of sharia, does it have an impact like killing? That's hifzul nafs, preservation of life, okay. Zina, does it have an impact? A lot of people think, and we've been speaking about this over the last so many days, if I'm doing my own sin, if I'm going into a corner, if I'm going to a nightclub, if I'm going into a brothel, if I'm going to a hotel, if I'm in my own private bedroom and I'm committing a sin, what's that got to do with you? What's that got to do with the rest of the world? How am I affecting anybody? Well, this is what we're going to learn now. When a person realizes the corruptive nature of zina, he says, once you realize, وَلَمَّا كَانَتْ مَفْسَدَةُ الزِّنَا مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْمَفَاسِدِ. When you realize that one of the greatest and the most corruptive things you can do in this world is zina, وَهِيَ مُنَافِيَةً لِمَصْلَحَةِ نِظَامِ الْعَالَمِ فِي حِفْظِ الْأَنْسَابِ وَحِمَايَةِ الْفُرُوجِ وَصِيَانَةِ الْحُرُمَاتِ. He says, when you realize how corruptive it is, you will understand that zina is completely opposed to مَصْلَحَةِ نِظَامِ الْعَالَمِ, the well-being of the system of this world. Why has Allah created this world? And for everything to go well and to go in harmony, zina goes against everything that is good for this world, he says. Everything this world was created for, and mainly we say these 5 maqasid of sharia, zina goes against all of them. And he numbers a few. For example, Hifdil Ansar. You can't protect lineage, families. There's no family. If a child is born out of wedlock, what happens? Okay? Himayatul Furuj, protecting chastity and the honor of males and females. That is an integral part of Islam. Okay, protecting the rights and the honor of a person. You're violating someone's dignity. And Siyanatul Haramat, protecting people's dignity and their integrity. وتوقي ما يوقع وعظم العداوة والبغضاء بين الناس من إفساد كل منهم امرأة صاحبه وابنته وأخته وأمه. He says once you realize how corruptive this is, it causes so much hatred. As a result of this, okay, if someone's having an affair with someone else's wife or someone else's husband or someone's son or someone's daughter, that hatred, okay, what's happening here, what we're violating? We're violating so many different things, okay? And then that leads to honor killings, okay? How dare you, you know, and people take revenge, okay? There's all sorts of things going on here. And he says, when you realize, and the Quran is very interesting. Whenever Quran has mentioned zina, it brings it with qatl. وَلَا يَقْتُلُونَ النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ وَلَا يَزْنُونَ. Quran says that they do not, the Ibadur Rahman, the true slaves of Allah are those who do not commit وَلَا يَقْتُلُونَ النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. They do not kill anybody unjustly. And immediately after that Allah says وَلَا يَزْنُونَ, and they do not commit zina. وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ يَلْقَى أَثَامًا. Because anybody that falls in the trap of zina has definitely fell in the trap of a very great sin. So here Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah is bringing to our attention the harms of zina, explaining to us that it's not just a sin that somebody does and that's the end of it. It's much more destructive and corruptive than you think. Now before we go into understanding some of the verses he brings and some of the hadiths he brings, and then he explains to us that, look, we always have to remember, this is not about us over here, it's about that person who asked that question. Okay, we have to always go back to that. What is the purpose of this book? Why did he write this book? This book is an answer to one question. What was his question? The question was, what do the scholars say regarding a person who's stuck in a sin? He knows that this sin is harmful for him in the world and in the hereafter, tried everything to let go of this sin and quit the sin, but he just can't. The more he tries, the more difficult it becomes. He's saying, what is the way out? Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah is teaching the way out, like he did with shirk al-khafi, with the riyah. He says people try to quit sins. Indirectly, he's telling this guy that if you try quitting the sin, shall I tell you something? You're never going to quit it. You can't quit sins just like that. And what he's teaching this individual and teaching all of us, including myself, if you want to quit a sin, you have to go to the root cause of the sin and understand why is this sin happening in the first place. Just by trying to give up the sin, it will not be given up. You have to understand why, because if the root cause is still there, if the instigator and the root of that sin is still present, you can claim to have given up the sin, but it's still going to happen. 2 weeks later, 1 month later, 1 year later, it's going to come back. So first of all, you have to identify what is the root cause, and you have to nip it in the bud. And that is what he's going to do. But before we go into that, I'm going to explain something to you, to understand, to help us understand how serious this is, and the implications that this is having globally. And this is not just something that affects individuals, and it's affecting everybody globally. Now we're going to go all the way back to the 1960s. So in the 1960s, specifically in 1963, there was something called the sexual revolution that took place. Have you heard of it? Yeah, some people are nodding their head. The younger ones are saying no. Kids are thinking, what is he on about? Right, so in 1963, something called the sexual revolution took place. So what happens is, there is a woman by the name of Mary Eberstadt. She's a very good writer actually, and she's written about this. She's written about this in a book she calls Adam and Eve After the Pill. Adam and Eve After the Pill. So what I'm telling you now is going to be from that particular book of this lady. So this is a Western academic. She's looking at the situation, and she's writing about this now and telling us what we should already know, how this particular sin is, what is it doing? It's violating the maqasid of sharia. So she writes, The whole book is based on the 5 paradoxes of the sexual revolution. So the whole idea of this revolution that took place in 1963, they wanted to achieve 5 things, but not let alone achieve them, the total opposite happened. So she's writing about the 5 paradoxes of the sexual revolution that took place in 1963. So what happened in 1963? In 1963, the first thing that happened, the FDA approved of birth control. They said, we're going to legalize it, we approve of it, it's going to be something that people can do. Now, the whole idea of approving birth control was, they wanted to free women from the responsibility of children. That a woman shouldn't have to think that if I want to fulfill my desire, that's going to result in me having to have a child to look after. So, with this in mind, what did they think they're doing? We're going to free the woman. We're going to give her liberty, freedom. So this was the whole idea behind it. So the drive was, we want to give freedom to women so that they don't have to now have this burden of having to look after children. So freeing women. So that was the purpose, freeing women from the responsibility of children. When did this happen? 1963. Then what happens? 10 years later, in 1973, we have something else. We have the Roe vs. Wade. Who's heard of the Roe vs. Wade? No? In the Supreme Court of the United States of America, they, based on the Constitution, they legalized and approved birth control and abortion, basically. This was something that was pushed, legalized, recognized in the Supreme Court at the high. This was like a landmark decision that took place in 1973. So 10 years later. So first we've had in 1963, we've had this revolution where the FDA approved of, and remember, this is happening where in America, but it's having a global effect all over the world, because this is now being followed everywhere, globally. So in 1963, they approved birth control. In 1973, you've got Roe vs. Wade. Look it up if you want to. You'll understand what it is, where it was a landmark decision where they give the open approval to abortion. And this was supported by people like, I don't know if you've heard the name, Hugh Hefner. I don't know if that name rings a bell with anybody. It's not a good name to think of. He died recently as well. You know what he's been behind. And you can, why did such people lobby abortion so much? Okay? For those of you who don't know, we've got Sharif and good, noble people sitting here. So I don't want to spoil your minds, especially whilst we're fasting in the month of Ramadan. But just to simplify it, this guy was the main person who started off magazines. Let's keep it simple, okay? The dirty magazines. Magazines that led the industry into pornography. Way before anything came into videos, this is the guy who objectified women. This is the idea. He objectified women. So it was to his advantage. He lobbied this and he wanted this abortion to go through. Now, what happens now is, once this went through, before 1960, we're looking at America at the moment, because this is where all this is taking place. And all this comes from there and then eventually comes to all the other places. So, before 1960, a survey was done. Only 5% of children were born out of wedlock. What we call simply as a bastard, okay? That's where the term comes from. An illegitimate child. I don't even know if you can use that word nowadays, because the percentage has gone so high. Like, does it change now? Do we change our terminology because everyone's doing it? So before 1960, what I'm trying to show you is this. Before the revolution, the sexual revolution in 1963, if you look at 1960, the percentage of children that were born out of wedlock was 5% in America. In 1995, that went up to 32%. 32% of all children were born out of wedlock. In 2016, that went way beyond 40% to 50%. Now you've got half of the children, okay, are born out of wedlock. This is a huge, huge number. So what she's doing, this lady, Mary Eberstadt, what she's doing is, in her book, Adam and Eve After the Pill, she's writing the 5 paradoxes of this revolution that takes place, that they thought they're trying to achieve 5 things, but the total opposite things happened as a result of them. what happened? Now, do we need Western academics to tell us this? But there's a Western academics writing on these things, because there are some people out there who've got some, they've got some sense. They can see what's happening in the world. So she writes that the first thing that they wanted to do, she says that through this revolution, they wanted to make birth control available and cheap. They wanted to make birth control available and cheap. And what's the paradox? So what happened? What happened was, the whole idea is, what was the purpose of birth control? What's the purpose of it? Freedom of women. So what are they trying to stop happening? No, but forget the children not coming to it. We're talking about the woman. What do they not want to happen to the woman? For her to become pregnant. So what happened? Did it work? She writes that after they passed this law, abortion and pregnancies were rising. The total opposite. They thought that what's going to happen, pregnancies are going to go down. But they're not. They started going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Because more and more people are, it should have dropped. According to their understanding, the whole idea of this revolution was for it to drop. But what's happening now is it's rising more and more and more. So that's the first paradox she writes about. The second one she writes about is, the whole idea was what? Supposed to liberate women. Okay, to liberate women, so women can make their own choices. It shouldn't be something that's forced on her. She can make her own choice. But in reality, what happened? It became much more harder for her. And it's become a more man-driven society, and she writes about an incident that happened in her own town, where this guy in the army, he got a teenage girl pregnant. And then when the guy came back from the army, the normal thing at that time as well, amongst Western people, was get married. Like, if we find out about a case and people just get married, better than nothing, living in zina, shadi karlo, get married. Okay, I'm not trying to say that's the best thing to do, but that is kind of common sense at that time, rather than continuing, because obviously you've got a child now, you're probably going to continue the relationship. Until now it was haram, at least get nikah now. So at that time in the Western world as well, it was normal. Okay, you made her pregnant. Everyone said, well, just get married. The guy goes, I'm not going to get married. And that was a huge blow. They hadn't heard of this before. That wasn't normal. That wasn't normal. But if you've had a relation with somebody and it's become that intimate, it's kind of like you kind of get married. So that was a huge blow. People didn't expect that kind of response, and that started to become normalized throughout the world. So the idea was to liberate women. But what's happened now? It's made it harder for women. Where the man is in the driving seat, and the man goes and does what he wants. And if the woman ends up becoming pregnant, it's not my problem. I'm not going to marry you. You should have taken the pill. That's your responsibility, not mine. So again, the paradox. What was supposed to happen was to free and liberate women. Instead, what's happening, it's made it harder for women. Women are suffering much more, and they're going through this all alone. So this is what she's writing about. That this is the paradox. So this is the second thing, that it's a burden on women now. So that was number 2. Number 3. Why did people like Hugh Hefner support this? We know exactly why. Because he wanted to objectify women. The idea was what? To empower women. The idea was to empower women. What's happening? The total opposite happened. Okay, women became disempowered. Women became an object. Women became a tool. And in 2016, she writes about this, the licensed sexual accreditation. This is the wording she uses. That sexual accreditation became licensed, as if you can go and you can objectify a woman, do whatever you want, and no one will say anything to you and get away with it. And this is why these kind of things, they supported this all throughout. Number 4, what she writes is, it was the paradox. The 4th paradox she writes about is, since the 1960s, this law and the sexual revolution has totally destroyed Christianity. This is a Western academic writing. Totally destroyed Christianity. What did we say? Maqasid of Sharia. One of them was Hifdud Deen, the preservation of Deen. This is, it's totally destroyed what? Christianity. And it destroys Islam as well. So it's not just, you might think, oh, it's one sin somebody's doing, big deal. What's the big deal? It's massive. It destroys the whole, not just Islam. The whole world and the goodness of the world is totally violated when a person engages in this act. And number 5, she writes that didn't stop the actual resolution, it didn't stop at privatizing the act. The idea was, what was the idea? That, okay, it's approved of, the FDA approved of birth control. The idea is, okay, someone's had a relation with somebody, okay, you can use birth control. Why? And nobody else finds out. It remains a private affair. It happened between two individuals, everyone's forgot about it, you move on, she moves on, and that's the end of it. But what's happened is now Islam is totally the opposite. When we get married, it has to be a social affair. In Islam, marriage is not secretive. That's why you shouldn't have secret marriages. Marriage is something that's a social affair. That's why young people nowadays get so annoyed with their parents, because this generation, what is it, Z or Z that we're in now, I can't even keep up with this, right? So I don't know, what are we meant to be, millennials or something? Okay, so nowadays kids, okay, it's like, they're like, why are you calling so-and-so person for the wedding? Like, what's he or she got to do with me? But that's how it is in our cultures, in our, like, it's a social thing. You call, like, not just your family, not just your extended family, but people from back home who are from your village, people who have been good with you. When you came to this country, when your parents came to this country, they kind of took care of us, they looked after us, they were nice to us, they used to do this for us, they used to childmind for us, and it's a social affair. But over here, the idea was to privatize it so people can get away with it. But did that happen? No. What it did instead, she writes, that it redefined family life. This resolution redefined family life, and it fractured family life. She says 2 things it did. It fractured family life and it made family life very small. So in Muslim countries, okay, and generally amongst Muslims, where Islam is predominant, I know we've become quite westernized now, we're not fully there yet, alhamdulillah, we've still got some of our values, but if you know, normally, generally, if you look back home, okay, back in some of the Arab countries, even in our Asian countries as well, and other places, you look how many people were there, how many brothers and sisters you have. So you ask somebody, because I've got 10 brothers, 5 sisters, okay, 4 brothers, 4 sisters. Okay, how many people in your house? You've got 15 people, 10 people, 3 people, 6 brothers and sisters. So that used to be here. Now, okay, well, of course, if Allah doesn't decide to give somebody, that's a different thing. But intentionally, what's happening now, you see, it's made the family life too, fractured it. So where families used to all live together, now you've got, okay, one family living up north, okay, in Aberdeen, okay, the other is in the middle, in the heart of England, the other is living in Cornwall, okay, one is in Ireland, one's in another country. So it's fractured the family, number 1. And number 2, what's it done? It's made it very small. Like they say, hum do, hamare do, okay, that's it, we're just gonna have 2, that's it, okay. So an average British family is like 2.5, okay, the dog as well. And that's more important. So this is what's happening. So she's writing, this is a Western academic writing. Remember we said one of the maqasid of sharia is hifzul nasl, preservation of the lineage and the family. Zina destroys families. It destroys families. You lose your children, you lose your family, you lose even your own family, you lose them, because nobody wants to really associate with you anymore. So this is what Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is now going to take us into. And then, do you know what else this causes? This causes loneliness, because when you have smaller families, look, this happened in 1960, this resolution or revolution, okay, both, it happened then. The knock-on effect is it's happening, and you might be thinking, what's that got to do with us? It's having a direct, because we are influenced by all of this as well. We're influenced by it. We live in this society, we are fully influenced by it. So even Muslim parents now have this in mind. I'll have like 1 kid, 2 kids, maximum 3, no more than that. Okay? Yeah, if someone's got health issues, or there's other issues, or you've got tarbiyah in mind, okay? The ulama have said, if you cannot make the tarbiyah of the children, okay, you're allowed to space your children out, because if you've got too many children all in one go, what are you going to look at? Number 1, number 2, and number 3. And then they all grow up messed up. Okay, so this is also important as well, their tarbiyah. Some people say, why are you not having all of them? Well, are you able to look after, give them the right upbringing in this society now, where it's so challenging, so troublesome? They say a father getting through to their child is like dialing a phone number. If you get 1 digit wrong, you won't get through. So it's not easy, it's very challenging, it's very difficult. So in this case, the ulama have given the permissibility. that you can space your children out, okay? It's allowed. So, and if you have tarbiyah in mind. So, what we're saying here is there's actually studies done called, you can go and check this out, loneliness studies. People feeling very lonely, right? Very small family. Families are getting very, very, very small. So then people are feeling very, very lonely because the parents decided not to have any more children, or that just the families are very small and fragmented, and people are becoming depressed and becoming very, very lonely because the world wasn't supposed to be like that. The world was supposed to be, we're social creatures, okay? And now we've got the social dilemma, okay? It's all about social media now, and that's become our family. People feel that people on there are my family more than your real family. Can you see how twisted it's all become? It's becoming very, very twisted, and we're going along with it without realizing. So people, this is my family, like, all my family out there, my fans out there, hi fam, hi family, hi there, how you guys doing? That's what it's all about. And it looks so glamorous, but these people who've got so many fake family and followers, a lot of them are doing it because they're very lonely. They're very, very, very lonely. They don't have anything inside, so they're having to do this. That's not where you get contentment and peace and happiness and just inner peace of mind from. It was never like that. But this is what's happening. And Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah is telling us this, that what's the root cause of this? What's the root cause? Zina. This is what we're trying to do. The root cause of all of this is zina. Now, when the next time someone tells you, mind your own business, it's nothing to do with you, it's just me and my private life. It's much more than that. I mean, we don't go around talking to people in that way. But just if we ever think like that, we need to, he's trying to change the way we think. Don't think of these sins like a private sin. Remember a few days ago, he taught us that a new perspective, that sins are just not related to you. The inflation of prices at the moment is happening because of my sins. My sins are causing this. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. I'm not saying this. Ibn al-Qayyim is not saying this. Quran is saying this. And why? لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْدَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا. Allah wants you to taste your sins. That look, you committed sins, petrol is more expensive, pay for it now. Now when you're paying for that petrol, okay, and it's hurting your pocket, at that time, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. Now think, I need to make tawbah to Allah. So Allah puts the prices down again. This is what Allah is saying in the Quran. We can complain and blame Brexit, you can blame Boris, you can swear at Rishi Sunak, you can talk about who you want. But in reality, they're not to blame. They're just put there. Today they are there, tomorrow somebody else will be there. Next day somebody else will be there. Allah has said the ball is in your court. You are the driver. In this world, Allah has made you the Khalifa. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi Khalifa. A Khalifa is someone who's supposed to be in control. We've lost control. This is why this is happening. We're supposed to be in control of what we do. When a person commits sins, he shows you out of control. The Khalifa is supposed to be in control. So, over here, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayh is going to now tell us about the harmful effects of zina. I mean, we're living in this culture. Some people might be thinking, why are we speaking so openly about zina in Ramadan? It's very normal. We're living in a hookup culture. Swipe right, swipe left. Like some guys might be thinking, whoa, this is people have made it very normal. This is what people are living on. This is an everyday life. We can't look at the people that are in the masjid. The number of people that come to the masjid, you pack this masjid up, Laylatul Qadr, whenever you want, that's still probably less than 1% of the Muslims out there. There's always going to be thousands and thousands of people, more people out there than the ones that are in here. And our concern from the minbar, from the mihrab, isn't just about the people that are here. Our concern should be for everybody. And this is the culture we're living in. It's become so normal that people don't even talk about it as bad anymore. This is the culture. We're living in a hookup culture. So he's saying that first of all, understand how harmful it is. Get the knowledge, learn, study. And then he's going to teach us now exactly what to do. Once we've understood how serious it is, then we have to protect our heart from this. How do we do it? He's going to teach us. So, وَلَمَّا كَانَتْ مَفْسَدَةُ الزِّنَا مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْمَفَاسِدِ. We've already discussed this already. Now Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is going to share with us a couple of verses of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the Quran, He has attached salvation, success, falah. This masjid is called Masjid Al Falaah. What does falah mean? Success, salvation. Who wants falah? We all want falah. Allah has combined falah in the Quran with what? He says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Those believers have attained falah, success in this world. And one of the qualities He describes is, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ. Those people who are protective over their private organs. So this is something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions. And then He says, فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى. Yes, how are you allowed to use it? إِلَّا عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ. With your halal spouse. You have a wife, you have a husband, it's allowed to fulfill your desire. فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. Whoever tries to fulfill their sexual desire with anyone other than their halal spouse, Allah says they are aadun, they are transgressors. You're crossing the line, mate. There's a line here, there's a boundary. Allah says you've crossed it. Ulaika humul aadun, you've gone past it. You are transgressing now. You are trespassing. You're in unwanted property. This is not your land. You can't go there. Allah is saying, I didn't make that halal for you. So فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ. May Allah protect us. Now, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is now going to give us this is what you call true Islamic psychology. You got psychology? What is Islamic? This is true Islamic psychology to the core. He's going to teach us now. Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is going to now teach us the root. How does zina happen? What causes it? How does a person fall into it in the first place? What is the root cause? So he's going to go into speaking about this. وَلَمَّا كَانَ مَبْدَأُ ذَلِكَ مِنْ قِبَلِ الْبَصَرِ جَعَلَ الْأَمْرَ بِغَضِّهِ مُقَدِّمًا عَلَى حِفْظِ الْفَرْجِ. He says that when we understand that the beginning of zina starts from where? Nobody goes and commits zina overnight. It starts from somewhere. It starts from the eyes. This is where it starts from. It starts from that. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prefaced zina, before He mentioned zina, He said, lower your gazes in the Quran. Now, lowering the gaze in today's age, it's like unknown of, unheard. If somebody speaks about it, they'll treat you like an alien, like go back to Jupiter. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean about lowering the gaze? Okay, don't look. What does that mean? Okay, it's unheard of, unknown of. No one even talks about it anymore. The only people that probably talk about it is the Tablighi brothers that when they go in Gasht, and they say, Nazar to Vadakar. Okay, they probably only come across some elderly auntie anyway, but when they're going in the night time. But what I'm saying is, these are the only people that are probably talking about it. Otherwise, no one else is actually speaking about this. Why? Because we're all involved in it. We're all involved in it. Who's going to speak about it? Everyone's involved in it. And he's saying that this is the first step towards zina. There is no zina that happens without this. And he gives us a whole breakdown, step by step. فَإِنَّ الْحَوَادِثِ مَبْدَأُهَا مِنَ النَّظَرِ كَمَا أَنَّ مُعَظَّمَ النَّارِ مِنْ مُسْتَصْغَرِ الشَّرَرِ. He says every act of sin starts with the eye, just like every fire starts off with a little flame. You don't have a massive fire. Okay, Grenfell didn't just happen just like that. Happen small. You have a small little spark, and that's what makes it into a huge fire. So you don't have a big zina happening. Okay, it starts off with a little look, just one look. That's all it takes. One look, one glance, and then it starts from there. So he's saying, you're going to try and give up zina, okay, it's never going to work. It's not going to work. If you're going to keep looking at her, or looking at things, or looking at this or that, it's not going to work. You need to understand what the root cause is. He says, this is how it happens. فَتَكُونَ النَّظْرَ. The first step is the look. He says, the first step is the look. ثُمَّ خَطْرَ. Then it's the thought. ثُمَّ خُطْوَ. Then it's the step. ثُمَّ خَطِيرَ. And then the shabang. The mistake happens then. So first he says is, the first thing that happens, فَتَكُونَ نَظْرَ. First is the look. ثُمَّ خَطْرَ is the thought. ثُمَّ خُطْوَ, meaning the step. And then it's the khati'ah, where the actual act takes place. It doesn't happen overnight. وَلِهَذَا قِيلَ. He says this is why it has been said, من حفظ هذه الأربعة أحرز من حفظ هذه الأربعة أحرز دينه. Whoever protects 4 things will protect their whole religion. This is very deep stuff, very useful, very powerful, very beneficial for anybody that takes this seriously. Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi is teaching us some very valuable lessons. Whoever protects 4 things, you will protect your religion. What does that also mean? If we don't protect any of these 4 things, we will destroy our religion, whatever we have. We don't have much of it, but whatever little we have, that will also go as well. May Allah protect us. He tells us 4 things. What we need to protect. Al-lahadhat. Learn these Arabic words first. Al-lahadhat, khatarat, al-lafadhat, and khutuwat. Okay? Lahadhat. Lahadhat means glances, the looks. Okay? Lahadhat. Number 2, khatarat. Khatarat means the thoughts. So the first one is the looks. Number 2, khatarat are the thoughts. Number 3, lafadhat. Lafs. We know what lafs means. Lafadhat is the words. Okay? Lafs is lafadhat. The words. Okay? The words. Chatting. And khutuwat. Khutwa means steps. Okay? He says, Man hafidha hadihi al-arba'a أحرز دينه. Whoever protects these 4 things, he will protect the whole of the deen. If you do not protect these 4, you will destroy your deen. فينبغي للعبد أن يكون بواب نفسه على هذه الأبواب الأربعة. He says, no one's going to help you. Nobody is going to help you do this. You have to be the bawab yourself. What's bawab? Bawab is what do we call the guys at the doors? The security. No, at the nightclub, what do you call them? Bouncers. Okay, what's the job of a bouncer? What's the job of the bouncer? Okay, to keep away anyone who's unwanted, anyone who's underage, anyone who's drunk, anyone who's not welcome there. So he's saying you need to be the guards. Okay, on these 4 areas, you have to be your own bawab and guard. Nobody else is going to do it for you. Nobody's going to, this is your job in this world because you are the Khalifa of Allah. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi Khalifa. And your job in this world is, as a Khalifa of Allah, is to maintain control. You have to be the bawab. Bawab meaning you have to be the guard. Guard on your eyes. God, you have to control what you look at, what you don't look at. And we're not just talking about looking at women. That's not what he's talking about only. It's general. And we're going to go more deeper into this, how serious this is. So one is God on the eyes, God on the thoughts, God on your tongue, and God on your steps and where you go. وَيُلَازِمُ الرِّبَاطَ عَلَى ظُهُورِهَا فَمِنْهَا يَدْخُلُ عَلَيْهِ الْعَدُوُّ فَيَجُوسَ خِلَالَ الدِّيَارِ وَيُتَبِّرْ مَا عَلَى تَتْبِيرًا. He says, the first place where you need to be a guard, a bouncer, a doorman is on your eyes. Because this is where every evil that comes into your life, it enters from here. You think of any evil, all the evils, not just zina, all the evils, they start from the eyes. And he says that the enemy enters in such a way. He says, the example is given again is very beautiful. فَيَجُوسَ خِلَالَ الدِّيَارِ. Meaning, it's like you opening your front door to the thief and says, Chalo aajao, jo lena ho le lo. Come inside, whatever you want to take, come and take it. Because what happens is I myself look at what I'm not supposed to, and I invite, inside it goes in, and I'm giving away my deen, my salah, my Quran, my dhikr, whatever good I've done, I'm letting the thief come inside. So you have to stop it, you have to be there, the guard on the door of your eyes, he's saying. And what happens is, that the age that we're living in social media, it's totally against this. Scrolling, for example, when we scroll, okay, what's the whole point of it? Okay, Instagram, for example, or any type of social media, let's say Insta's like the big one at the moment, or it's been big for a long time. What happens is you're just scrolling up and down, and can you control what comes on there? You can't control what's going to, and the whole buzz is about not knowing what's going to come next. That's the whole idea. If you already know, then you put your phone away, and to you it might feel like it's been 10 minutes. it's only been 10 seconds, okay, and you think, oh, let me see what's going on there now. Maybe someone's posted something different, okay? That's the whole buzz is about seeing what you don't expect to see. But that's the problem. That is the problem. And psychologists are saying most of depression today is because of social media scrolling. A lot of depression today is because of scrolling endlessly on social media. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayhi, who was around more than 700 years ago, later on, very shortly, if we get time to get there, he's going to actually explain to you why that is. And it's very deep. So, now on social media, you can't really guard, can you? What you see, what you don't see. You don't choose. Before, when it was just the TV, you could be a little bit more particular. Which channel you go on, which channel you don't go on. Which ones, you know what program it is. Even though it wasn't like so clean, but at least you had a bit of control. Like, okay, I'm going on this, I'm not going on this one. I'm choosing to go on this, I'm not choosing to go on this one. With social media, you can't control what the next post is going to be. Okay, you might just flick past it. You might not stop on it. But the thing is, you've seen it already. Once you've seen it, okay, once you've seen it, what happens? You've looked at it. What happens then? Once you've seen an image, it doesn't go from your mind. It doesn't go. You might do tawbah, you might do istighfar, maybe it was even unintentional, but the damage is done. This is why the Prophet ﷺ very beautifully, in his beautiful manner, and you know this is a divine inspiration from Allah, he said that the gaze is one of the poisonous arrows from the quiver of shaitan. Why? You might see somebody, you see a woman, okay, and then you might try to forget about her, or you might fall into love with her, and then somehow, okay, or you might delete it, okay, from your profile. You might go off it, but that image will stay in your head. It's like poison. You didn't know there was poison in something. You drink the water, you don't know there's poison in there, okay, but the poison's already gone in. It's going to damage you. So it stays inside you and it harms you. May Allah protect us. So this is why the Prophet ﷺ, when he spoke about zina, he first says that the eyes commit zina. He didn't go to the actual act of zina. He first said, Al-Aynan tazniyan. He says the eyes commit zina. And the zina of the eyes is to look. May Allah protect us. So he says, وَأَكْثَرْ مَا تَدْخُلُ الْمَعَاصِي عَلَى الْعَبْدِ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأَبْوَابَ الْأَرْبَعَةِ. He says the sins, they enter into a person's life, they enter through these 4 channels, the ones that we've just mentioned. And then he's going to go into each one. So the first one is lahadat, the look. He says, فَهِيَ رَائِدُ الشَّهْوَةِ وَرَسُولِهَا. This, the eyes, do you know, for your desire, it's like a messenger you send out. When you send out a messenger to go and check things out, go and see how things are. You know, you're going to go somewhere and you set someone out. Just go and see how things are. So that's your eyes. Your eyes go and check things out first, see how it is. And he says, وَحِفْظُهَا أَصْلُ حِفْظِ الْفَرَجِ. If you want to stay away from zina and protect your private areas from committing sins, then you must protect the sight. Without protecting the gaze, you can't protect the private areas. It's impossible. This is what he's teaching us. فَمَنْ أَطْلَقَ بَصَرَهُ أَوْرَدَهُ مَوَارِدَ الْحَلَكَاتِ. Whoever lets their eyes loose, you don't control what you look at, what you don't look at. There's no filter on there whatsoever. You're just looking at everything, whatever comes your way. Then he's saying, then you're going to end up in destruction. You're going to end up in places that you don't want to be in. This is why the Prophet ﷺ has said, don't follow one glance with another. If you're going somewhere, or even on social media, or wherever you are, you end up seeing what is haram upon you, what you're not supposed to see. He says, don't follow the first glance with the second glance. You've turned away, okay, and you're saying, Astaghfirullah, I shouldn't have looked at that. He's saying, don't look again now. Because to protect yourself from getting into further trouble, you need to protect your eyesight. This is what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us over here. Even the Sahaba, you know, Sahaba, it's so interesting learning about the Sahaba because they were like really down-to-earth people. And they were the least pretentious. They weren't fake people. They were very real people. And we can really relate to them. The Prophet ﷺ told them, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْجُلُوسِ عَلَى الطُّرُقَاتِ. Oh my Sahaba, don't sit and stand around in the pathways, like on the street corners. Don't gather around like we do. Okay, you leave from the masjid and people will stand in the street corner, for example, or on some other place. People have gathered, friends have got together, you're just having a chit chat. Okay, so Sahaba would do this as well. They'd get together in different places with their mates, with their friends, and they're having a talk. They're just discussing, talking with themselves. So the Prophet ﷺ said to them, look, it's better if you don't do this. So the Sahaba, they were real. They weren't They let out their real feelings and they told him as it was. They didn't fake it in front of him and then go behind his back. They spoke to him. They put their issues in front of him. They said, Ya Rasulullah, majalisuna ma lana minha bud. O Prophet of Allah, if you don't stand around here, where else are we going to stand around? We want to have a chit chat. We can't, these kind of things, we can't go into the house and do it. Okay, we've got family, space, restrictions. These are the only kind of places where we can end up doing this kind of social gatherings that we have. So the Prophet ﷺ approved of it. He goes, okay, fine. I mean, I understand, I get you guys. I really get you guys. But okay, fine. فَإِن كُنْتُمْ لَا بُدَّ فَاعِلِينَ. He says, okay, if you're going to do this, if this is something you don't have any other place to go and do this, فَأَعْتُ الطَّرِيقَ حَقَّهُ. You must give the path its right. The path has a right. You need to give the path its right. He said, what is the right of the path? Number one, he said, غَضُّ الْبَصَرِ. When you're standing on a street corner, you're going to get all sorts of people passing by. Males, females, young, old, ugly, pretty, and everyone else is going to go from there. When you're standing there, what you need to do is don't check people out, okay? Don't say, oh, check her out, check. No, at that, ghaddul basar. You're talking to your friends, keep it as a social discussion. Don't stand there trying to flirt with people that are going by, winking here and this and no. At that time, lower your gaze. وَكَفُّ الْأَذَى. And don't cause any inconvenience to people. Don't block the path. Anyone's causing any trouble to anybody, you need to stop that. And وَرَدِّ السَّلَامِ. People passing by, they say, Assalamu alaikum. Respond to them and say, Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So the Prophet ﷺ, he teaches us how dangerous the gaze is. Now there are some very important issues that we wanted to discuss. However, time doesn't allow us to continue. Inshallah, we'll complete this in the morning after Salatul Fajr, inshallah, in the next session. I invite you all to please come and attend. Jazakumullahu khaira wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Inshallah, we'll make short dua. This is the time for dua. Let's make collective dua. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين وإلهكم إله واحد لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم اللهم لا أحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك جزا الله عنا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ما هو أهله رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا ونبيا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لك الحمد كله ولك الشكر كله اللهم لك الحمد على نعمة الإيمان ولك الحمد على نعمة الإسلام ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين رب اغفر وارحم وتجاوز عما تعلم إنك أنت الأعز الأكرم رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين اللهم إني ظلمت نفسي ظلما كثيرا ولا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت فاغفر لي مغفرة من عندك وارحمني إنك أنت الغفور الرحيم O kind Allah, O loving Allah, O most merciful Allah, O most generous Allah, O most compassionate Allah, O most Rahman and most Rahim. Oh Allah, you are the most generous, the most forgiving, oh Allah. We ask you in these blessed moments, oh Allah. We are great sinners, oh Allah. From head to toe we are covered in sins, oh Allah. We have committed your disobedience, oh Allah. We've come here to say sorry to you, oh Allah. Oh Allah, we are very sorry for what we have done, oh Allah. We beg you in these blessed moments, please forgive us, oh Allah. Forgive us, oh Allah. Forgive us, oh Allah. We have done a lot of wrong, oh Allah. We have committed many sins, oh Allah. But we know only you as the forgiver, oh Allah. You are the Ghaffar, oh Allah. In these moments you will be forgiving thousands of people, O Allah. Do not leave us from this gathering except that we are forgiven, O Allah. Forgive every person sitting here, O Allah. Forgive all the sisters and the brothers following from home, O Allah. Forgive the whole Muslim Ummah, O Allah. Forgive us, O Allah. Forgive our parents, O Allah. Forgive our brothers and sisters, O Allah. Forgive our children, O Allah. Forgive our relatives, O Allah. O Allah, help us to stay away from your disobedience, O Allah. Create the hatred of sins in our hearts, O Allah. Help us to obey you, O Allah. Make it easy for for us to pray our 5 times salah, O Allah. Help us to recite the Quran on a daily basis, O Allah. Make us closer to your Jannah, O Allah. Grant us your pleasure, O Allah. Safeguard us from haram, O Allah. Grant us a life of halal, O Allah. Accept the fast we have kept, O Allah. We have kept it only with your tawfiq, O Allah. Accept our recitation of the Quran, O Allah. Accept our standing in Taraweeh, O Allah. Accept our charity and dua, O Allah. Bless us in this month of Ramadan, O Allah. O Allah, we beg you in these blessed moments, O Allah. Shower your mercy on the ummah, O Allah. Have mercy on the ummah, O Allah. Relieve the ummah from its suffering, O Allah. Feed those who are starving, O Allah. Grant clean water to those who are thirsty, O Allah. Grant shelter to those who are homeless, O Allah. Grant peace to those who are living in fear, O Allah. O Allah, forgive the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. O Allah, forgive our parents, O Allah. Look after our parents, O Allah. Take good care of our parents, O Allah. Have mercy upon them as they had mercy upon us when we were younger, O Allah. Those of our parents who have left the world, fill their graves with nur, O Allah. When the time comes to leave the world, O Allah, make our last day our best day, O Allah. And grant us death with the kalima, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asked of you many good things at this moment. We ask of you the same. He sought your protection from many evils. We seek your protection from the same. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيما أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله استغفر الله. आप लोगों से एक गुजारिश की जाती है कि इंडिया के अंदर अभी जो फूड पार्सल तकसीम कर रहे हैं, तो आप हजरात के पास जो ज़कात सदक़ात लिल्लाह के पैसे हों मस्जिद वालों तक पहुँचाए, ताकि आपकी ज़कात सदक़ात सही जगह पर पहुँच सके. अल्लाहुम्मा अइन्ना अला तिलावतिल कुरआन व ज़िक्रिका व शुक्रिका व हुस्न इबादतिक. अल्लाहुम्मा ला मानिअ लिमा अअतैत व ला मुअतिय लिमा मनअत व ला यनफअु ज़ल जद्द मिनकल जद्द. अल्लाहुम्मा अंतस सलाम व मिनकस सलाम तबारक या ज़ल जलाल वल इकराम बिरहमतिक या अरहमर राहिमीन.